Hey, Al, Scott Horton here. It's always safe to say that one should keep at least some of your savings in precious metals as a hedge against inflation. And if this economy ever does heat back up and the banks start expanding credit, rising prices could make metals a very profitable bet. Since 1977, Robertson Roberts Brokerage Inc. has been helping people buy and sell gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, and they do it well. They're fast, reliable, and trusted for more than 35 years. And they take Bitcoin. Call Robertson Roberts at 1-800-874-9760 or stop by rrbi.co. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the show. Hey, guess what? On the line, I got Grant F. Smith from the Institute for Research Middle East Policy and also from Amazon.com, where he wrote probably a good third of the books they sell there, all of them about the Israel lobby and their influence in the United States, legal and illegal. Welcome back to the show. Grant, how you doing, man?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Very happy to have you back here on the show, my friend. And I was laughing this morning when I saw this new piece. It'll be running. It may already be running on the blog at antiwar.com, and it'll be up in the news section too here. This news release. It's a poll. Well, you tell me. What's the poll say?
All right. Well, I'm glad you're not calling it a push poll again, but it's kind of a poll. We did a Google consumer survey, right? And we took a story that anti-war and a bunch of Israeli news outlets ran with a couple of years ago, which was that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was involved in a smuggling ring that was illegally importing export prohibited items from the U.S., including 800 Krytrons, which can be used for triggering nuclear weapons. So we put out a one-question poll through Google Consumer Research asking the following. FBI files say Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was previously involved in illegally smuggling U.S. nuclear triggers to Israel. And then we had a bunch of questions in order of he should be allowed to visit the U.S., he should first be investigated by the FBI, he should not be investigated or visit the U.S., or whatever you want to say with an open results question. And almost 55% of the American adults surveyed said, no, if he wants to come into the U.S., he really ought to be investigated for that. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope this gets a lot of play. I hope Haaretz and the Jerusalem Post are on your email list, too.
They are. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, we put this thing out to CNN. We've given it over to a lot of regional journalists, and it is a statistically significant poll. This isn't, this isn't some weird online poll from our website. This is actually going out through a network that is able to understand what the demographics are behind the respondents in order to get a statistically significant result. And so it was 1,507 responses, a good mix of age categories, income categories. And so I think it's interesting on two fronts. Number one, there wasn't a lot of other U.S. coverage of this finding. I mean, foreign news outlets, again, including the Israelis, were very interested in it, and they even forced the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs to issue their standard denial. And so that was interesting. And the other thing is just to see what Americans think when they actually have a little bit of, bona fide, relevant information in a polling situation. So, there were still a lot of people who came up with crazy answers or didn't want to respond, but it was a very interesting result in the sense that most people were saying, hey, if this guy's coming to the U.S. and he wants to hype the Iranian nuclear threat, maybe he ought to answer a few questions about his own past first. And I thought it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's an important couple of points you make there about how this isn't a poll of readers of the IRmep site and what do they think. No. This is a real survey by a hired-out survey company that does this. And then the second thing, like you say, is about the people's reaction. Once that they know that there's a story here, like when you talk about the media ignoring it, it would be understandable for them to ignore it if what you were saying wasn't true. Obviously, it's something that people don't know. So you have to kind of inform them that, hey, there's credible reason to believe that this is the case. Do you think there should be some kind of investigation? You got all those bases covered. They can't criticize you and say, oh, where's he coming up with this? Because they don't want to see your documents.
Right. Well, basically, Google's not going to put out a poll. They're not going to risk all of their affiliations of the news websites that actually field this in their network by putting out something that is, inflammatory or wrong or, discriminatory. So they vet these surveys, but, you can easily find the FBI files. You can easily find Richard Kelly Smith's statements. You can find news clippings. You can find the 2 Israeli authors who wrote about this Project Pinto as well. So it's not like the information isn't out there. And they looked at the survey and they ran it. So it wasn't just you can't say that this is something that doesn't have some relevance and doesn't have some vetting.
Yeah.
Not that anyone wants to be subject to gatekeepers in any sense for getting information, but there are some gatekeepers, whether it's anybody, press release, editors at Anti-War, editors at Newsweek, news gets vetted, polls get vetted. So it's an interesting process.
Yeah, competing poll companies vet each other and their statistical sampling and those kinds of things too. Friendly competition hopefully keeps us all honest. Now elaborate for the rest of the segment here, which is very short, 40 seconds, Netanyahu's role in this thing.
Well, Netanyahu's role is being an employee and coordinator from an Israeli front company, Heli Trading. He worked there, and he would meet with the U.S. contact, Richard Kelly Smith, when he went to Israel, and they were running all of these orders through a number of different companies, including Milco and Milchan Brothers, but Milco was in California, putting orders from the Ministry of Defense, Israeli Ministry of Defense, through this network to illegally procure items that they didn't want to try to attempt to ship through Israeli diplomatic pouches. And they were very successful in getting just about everything they needed until they were caught. Their American counterpart had to flee overseas. He was eventually tracked down, arrested. And before he went to jail, he blew the whistle on the entire operation.
Right. And I'm sorry, good. It turns out we actually had a minute and 40 seconds. So now we can also tell them about your website, which is IRmep.org for the Institute for Research, Middle East Policy, or Middle Eastern Policy. And people can find all your documents on this and all the books you've written about the covert Israeli program to steal nuclear material and nuclear technology from the United States. Thank you so much for your time on the show, Grant. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
IRmep.org. IRmep. We'll be right back. Hey, Al Scott Horton here for The Future of Freedom, the monthly journal of the Future Freedom Foundation at fff.org/subscribe. Since 1989, FFF has been pushing an uncompromising moral and economic case for peace, individual liberty, and free markets. Sign up now for The Future Freedom, featuring founder and president Jacob Hornberger, as well as Sheldon Richmond, James Bovard, Anthony Gregory, Wendy McElroy, and many more. It's just $25 a year for the print edition, $15 per year to read it online. That's fff.org/subscribe. And tell them Scott sent you. Hey, Al Scott here. Ever wanted to help support the show and own silver at the same time? Well, a friend of mine, libertarian activist Arlo Pignati, has invented the alternative currency with the most promise of them all. QR Silver Commodity Discs. The first ever QR code 1-ounce silver pieces. Just scan the back of one with your phone and get the instant spot price. They're perfect for saving or spending at the market. And anyone who donates $100 or more to the Scott Horton Show at scotthorton.org/donate gets one. That's scotthorton.org/donate. And if you'd like to learn and order more, send them a message at commoditydiscs.com or check them out on Facebook at /commoditydiscs. And thanks.